This clip, we're talking about harmony, harmony has lots of aspects to it, so we're going to talk about some other terms associated with harmony. So what is harmony? Harmony is the vertical aspect of music. It is what happens in any moment of time. And harmony is when you have two or more pitches sounding together, and it's the sound of that. And so unlike melody, which is perceived through time, and rhythm, which is also perceived through time, those are both horizontal elements, harmony is the vertical. So chords are a form of harmony, and if you've seen any guitarist perform or pianist, if you played hymns, you know that the vertical aspect are the chords that go with it. So then what are chords? A chord is a simultaneous sounding of any three or more pitches. So guitarists talk about chords, and you'll see this collection of three fingers down plus the open strings. This is what a chord looks like. Notice that there are three round dots there. And so if you're a jazz musician or you're playing more complicated music, often you'll have more than three pitches, but it is, again, the vertical aspect of the music. And chords are often built on a scale. And scales are a horizontal collection of a sequence of specific pitches that we've decided belong together. And so in this case, these are what scales might look like if you were reading music. But here's what a scale might sound like versus a chord. That is a scale. A chord built off of that piece might sound like this. Those three notes play together. Sometimes scales can be don't require skipping of notes. So what I played for you didn't require skipping, but sometimes we have scales that we say, okay, these collection of pitches belong together, but there's going to be some skips in the sound. So here's an example of one. That is a collection of 5 notes, and we call it a pentatonic scale. And that pattern of notes is used around the world for folk music, and we call that pentatonic. So it's a type of scale. Most of the scales that we have and that you use are typically a collection of pitches that are in sequence and don't have skips to them. Okay, so if we say something is in the key of a piece, the key of the piece in this case is A major. Here's a collection of sharps, not hashtags, that tell a musician that this is going to be in the key of A. But the key is your home base. It tells us we love to start and end at that note, and it tells us what note the piece centers around. So if it's in the key of G, the note G is the home base of that piece. Now, sometimes we say a piece is in the key of G major, or we say it's in G minor, or E major, E minor, whatever it is. If we say something is in major, we're talking about the mode of the piece. And two typical modes that we see a lot in music are major and minor. And the major mode of a key typically is brighter and is often associated with happier music these days. And then if you have something that you want to sound a little bit more depressed and melancholy, we will put it in a minor mode. So here's an example of a major chord progression, a major key. That has a very happy sound to it. If we go to the minor mode, it sounds like this. In our culture, we say that sounds perhaps a little sadder. Okay, so major and minor mode. Now we're going to skip on to something else, and that becomes important for music as we go through. So what is consonance and dissonance? In the harmony that we're looking at this here, as we move forward, consonance is a feeling of repose. It's restful and stable. You're like, oh, I can chillax here. I'm happy. This is a good space. Dissonance, on the other hand, makes us want to move forward, and it is part of what drives music onward. So we can have consonance and dissonance in intervals. There are intervals that are comfortable, the distance between two notes, that are comfortable, and intervals that we want to resolve. They're uncomfortable. We want it to go somewhere else. And then we have it in chord progressions, and then we have it on a broader spectrum with whole pieces. So this idea of consonance and dissonance goes across. So here's a couple examples of intervals that are comfortable, and then chords that want to resolve to a different chord, and they drive a sequence of chords forward. So here's your interval. We often say that this is a very comfortable interval. So is that. We call these consonant intervals. However, this interval is a minor second. It's not comfortable. We tend to say, okay, can you resolve it to that? Or this one, it's a major seventh for those of you who want to know. This really asks to resolve to here. It really wants us to move there. Another interval that's not as comfortable is this one. This is an augmented fourth diminished fifth. It wants to move. So we use those intervals, and sometimes we have a chord progression, and we're going to say that, remember, this is our home key. We're in the key of C here. That's okay. If I play that chord, this is a dominant seventh chord, it really wants to resolve to here. Sometimes we resolve elsewhere, but it does not want to stay on that chord. So we have chords that are give us this desire to move on, dissonance, if you will. For those of you who work in, who love movies and stories, there's this idea of the hero's journey. And so, and for me, I love making the connection between consonance and dissonance here, because the hero, say Luke Skywalker perhaps, or Frodo, is very happy at home. Life is going on. Maybe they're a little itchy to get out, but there's nothing that's asking them to change their life significantly. And then they get a call to adventure by somebody. Maybe there's a droid that shows up and says, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. Come help me, rescue us. And so we get to meet up with Obi-Wan, and then we start the adventure. You come back and, oh my goodness, I can't go back home because everybody's gone. And you go through all kinds of tests, and at some point there's an ordeal in the story. Frodo has to somehow, he has multiple ordeals. Luke has all kinds, the adventure of how do we get rid of the Death Star. Maybe you have a battle with your dad. I don't know. Darth Vader. And then at some point there's a resolution, and you receive the reward, and you get yourself back home. And while home is maybe not the original place, it's a place of rest. So this idea of consonance up here and dissonance down here. Right now, some of you may be going on your own hero's journey, your own sense of consonance and dissonance, and most of us want to find moments of consonance in our lives. And so may you find those moments of consonance in the middle of your dissonance as we move forward.